Well, the sun is shining, and that turf course is a verdant green here at Gulfstream Park as we settle in and begin our first full 5-day racing week in the new month of February. Blue skies throughout, the sun is shining, and again, a picture-perfect day for thoroughbred racing as we head upstairs to our third-floor clubhouse studios. Acacia Courtney, Jason Blewett, hope you're doing okay, and we're ready to go, Acacia. 10 races on the Wednesday card.
That's right. First post a little bit later this week. Now, from now on weekdays will be 1 p.m., so do take that into account. That's why we're starting a little bit later in here, but good week coming up. Obviously, Saturday, always looking ahead. Some more stakes action coming up.
Yeah, the Suwannee River will be the stakes race this coming Saturday, and the featured attraction for sure as the dust continues to settle in regards to the Holy Bull here last Saturday with Tiz the Law. Now there's some talk, which is music to our ears, that maybe the Louisiana Derby is not the plan A, so to speak, and the Florida Derby might basically take over that spot. We'll see, and time will tell. But Tiz the Law was really great, and it's a similar, maybe not on that high level or the highest level theme at this point, Acacia, but I'll tell you, looking at today's 9th race with Carpe Omnius, he seems like a horse who clearly could be prepping for maybe the Fasig-Tipton Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, it could be interesting for sure. Very game debut from the one hole for obviously the top class connections. He cost a lot by Carpe Diem, and we're looking forward to seeing him take on winners for the first time today.
And that will be a couple days before, probably close to 48 hours, give or take, before Friday's February 7th Stronach 5 kicks off. It'll all begin, in fact, at about 10 to 4 Eastern up in Maryland at Laurel Park, and we're holding down the fort with a couple of races in the mix, including races 8 and 10 on that Friday card.
Absolutely, and you've got some California action as well. The opener from Santa Anita and race number 3 from Golden Gate. So as always, $1 minimum, that 12% takeout, and $100,000 guarantee.
Sounds good. We will times that guarantee, however, by 3 this afternoon. $300K is the guaranteed minimum in the jackpot 20-cent Rainbow Six that begins in race number 5 on the program this afternoon. We do have that carryover in the super high 5 of over $6,000. So looking forward to the super high 5. And I'll tell you, Acacia, getting down and really getting your hands dirty, so to speak, with the past performances, this is not an easy race to not only start the week, but the opening pick 5 and that super high 5 carryover. I'm curious who you have here in the early 5.
Well, I did end up going too deep. I almost used the number 10 call, Kurt, who's taking some early money, and I think just by virtue of the connections, first-time starters for the Mark Casse barn, not typically going to be the highest numbers that we will see, but in some of the later races, I wanted some coverage. So I've got just next up Poughkeepsie, who looks like the one to beat on the drop, and Tempesta for Chuck Lawrence, who I actually liked quite a bit at a big price last time and ran a solid 3rd. So maybe this just might be the right spot for this horse. I'm just going to stand alone with Road to Peace, the big drop in class, and just not really loving anybody else in there.
He looks pretty good there.
He looks pretty good in that spot. And again, wanting some coverage in some of the later races. You've got some interesting horses maybe trying the turf in the 3rd race. 4th race, I think Fancified should like the drop in class, but that's a really solid race as well with a lot of different places to go. And then we wrap it up with the 5th, and I think Mark Casse has the potential to get the win there with Machiavelli to the inside, but again, using some coverage.
Yeah, Just Call Me Norman and Machiavelli rematching off a fast-paced race here on January 12th. We've also got a Kieran runner in the mix who you use, the number 7, Modatham, who looks okay, called by Candy Ride, who I think is very well spotted, trying winners for the first time. Winners need not apply, however, in this upcoming maiden 25 down to 20 for the 3-year-olds on a fast and firm Wednesday, February the 5th. You probably, I think, have the horse to beat on top, and certainly a horse who's taking some early play about an hour out from that 1 p.m. opener. There's another sign this meet is about halfway in the books. The days are starting to get longer, aren't they?
They are, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Getting a little bit later sunshine. When you stay a little bit longer at Gulfstream Park, you miss some of the traffic.
Yeah, that is a very, very good, that's a good rule of thumb for sure. That puts me in a good mood, bypassing some of that stuff on 95. Next stop, Poughkeepsie, though, won't be traveling down the Northway or anything like that. In fact, 95 south from Palm Meadows, the base of this gelding bike, congrats. And I hear you, new face in for the maiden 20. Can he, however, go 5 on the grass?
Yeah, and he's actually, I think, probably one of his best races was early in his career sprinting in a race taken off of the turf at Laurel. And I thought, looking at that race again, he had shown a lot of speed. In fact, both of the races that were taken off of the turf sprinting, he had shown a lot more speed, and he was off slow and stuck wide last time with a drop-down horse that just seemed to be the one to beat. So I think he was taken out of his comfort zone, hard at getting the distance, so they turned him back in sprinting second time for this barn. And more than anything, I just think he might find the right spot. I thought Tempesta ran really well last time out, and maybe when I liked him at almost 40 to 1, and now I'm, jumping off the bandwagon when he's going to be a much shorter price. But again, this just might be the right field for these two horses.
I really like the life that he showed. In context to this field, he's got a fairly strong-looking last-out race going 5 furlongs on the turf, and that's good enough for me. Good barn, good jockey there with the Christian riding for Chuck Lawrence and a gelding by Noble Mission. Let's move on to the second race this afternoon. We hit the main track for the second race, an older 12-5 to 10-5 claiming event. And I do we'll pull up that last out race and replay on January 5th for the 5 Road to Peace. And there's a part of me that goes, okay, it's great showing this replay as sort of a window dressing and a good effort. However, the relevance of this race, I don't really know if it's all that relevant, considering this horse was claimed 2 back for 20, stepped up to 40, maiden 40 in this race, finally showed some life, or at least I should say his stablemate Company Store was the one that finally busted down the door and got that maiden diploma, and then boom, second off the claim, Safi drops the number 5 Road to Peace, who just runs out of racetrack in for 12-5.
Yeah, and just so late, just would not switch leads in the stretch, too. I almost wonder if maybe he was going to show a little bit more oomph at the end if we had gotten to see that. But I do think he was claimed for 20, so dropping down to 12-5. It was a big step up in class last time when clearly he couldn't handle the maiden special weight competition. But just seeing Tyler Gaffleone in the saddle, he's won a lot of races for Safi, and the string that this barn has been on.
Yeah.
Maybe it's okay, let's have somebody else try to deal with him when we get a W.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm sure they win today, and they already picked up that second for maiden 40, and if he gets claimed away for 12-5, you make a couple of bucks. You do get to win a race during the winter meet here at Gulfstream, and that is something Safi's done in bunches. In fact, he sits third as we start the new week in the standings with 22 wins, 4 behind the leader in Todd Pletcher. Moving on to the third, things do open up to an extent here. I mean, you've got a 2-5 shot favorite in the second in Road to Peace. I don't think we're dealing with a favorite or even horse to beat of that caliber, not even close in this upcoming 3-year-old filly $30,000 to $25,000 claiming race. I do like the last out effort, quite simply, with speed to boot from the 7 Palace Two-Step, who was third and again was involved in the pace. And although the runner-up Richie's Great Girl came back to win on the dirt, I just think for this level on the turf, that was a legit field.
Yeah, it was. Mrs. Maisel's been very good for Terry Pompey for sure. What I didn't love about that performance, and yes, it was her first time on the turf, and so I certainly think that she's a big player in here. It seemed like she kind of got the lead and started to wait on horses a little bit. She started to hang a bit late and ended up getting passed by a couple of others. And again, she was passed by 2 nice ones, and Mrs. Maisel, who's been in good form, and Richie's Great Girl came back to win. So I took a stab with the 2 Pick Up the Phone, who arguably should have won last time. Was bet down for Mike Maker, but just hoping that this is a horse who's going to sit the good trip. I think we've got some other speed in here in addition to Palace Two-Step, especially One Hot Drama, Flash Money, Secret Miss, who's trying the grass for the first time. I'm hoping Pick Up the Phone just gets a little bit of a catbird seat trip today.
Yeah, that did not happen last time out. I don't know if it was just the way the race played out, maybe a little bit of rider overconfidence at 3-5 in a short 7-horse field. She was never in in a position where it looked like she might kick on again as a way heavy odds-on favorite. Tangled Tail, in fact, the number 4 in this race, got a much better ride, I thought, from Luca, and just sat the pocket, angled out, and came with a good run to finish second at almost 35-1. But I'm with you. I think the 2 pick up the phone is better than that last race might suggest. I'll tell you, though, Acacia, when it comes down to it, maybe the wild card belongs to Wesley's filly on the outside, the Uncle Mo filly in the number 8, Dixie Mo, who tries the turf for the first time. I'm sure you saw there's an older brother who did okay on the grass.
Yeah, 3-time turf winners by Uncle Mo. There's certainly versatility there, and it is interesting because it is typical for Wesley to try firsters on the turf. That one was taken off of the grass. She won by 4. He said, okay, well, I'll keep her on the main track then, and she just never really seemed to recapture that form that she showed in her first start.
From the outside with Joe Bravo as we move onto the main track. 12-horse cast coming up in this upcoming Friday, or I should say Wednesday, 4th race, a 3-year-old filly, $50,000 to $40,000 claiming race. I've already got Beat the Expert swimming around in my head and already starting to feel the pressure, but more on that a bit later in the week here on this February 5th at Gulfstream. So a lot going on, and I think looking at this dozen 3-year-old filly cast, Acacia, it's really a race about who's going to step forward and who's going to improve, because I think to this point, a number of these horses have run okay, like the one Fancified, and my top pick, the 4 Shining Colors. I just think there's probably between maybe a live firster or 2, mainly the 2 Ebony Bay, horses are sitting on races that are going to propel them forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because this is the type of race that you have some horses maybe dropping for the first time, and both you and I preferring those kinds. Maybe this might be the right spot for a live firster for sure. And I didn't pull this stat, but I landed on Fancified because this was a filly who I thought was a little bit green last time, was kind of really distracted, and I like the addition of blinkers. But Ken McPeak, going from maiden special weight to maiden claiming with first-time blinkers, is 5 for 10 winning and 6 for 10 in the money. So I just thought that was a little bit interesting. There were some big prices in there. It's a $14 ROI, and this one won't be that price, but I thought, kind of an interesting thing to see that the addition of blinkers with a class drop.
Yeah, it's such like a really narrow stat.
It is.
When you add the blinkers on, that first-time blinkers, I mean, that is really a niche-like stat, but clearly a 50% move for Ken. So that gives me some confidence. Fancified is going to be one of those fillies that's going to step forward. And Rodolphe Brisset, meanwhile, has a Tampa shipper in the 4 who you've got second. In fact, you and I are 1-4-4-1 in this race. And we'll look at the last-out effort at Tampa Bay Downs for the number 4 Shining Colors, who probably wasn't going to win this race, but I still thought she had somewhat of an eventful 2-furlong trip off the quarter pole where she's down inside and she's just unable to get outside. She's in the black cap. She's trying to force her way out and just trying to make some space for herself in between the leader, the number 2, and the number 5 horse, and she'll wind up getting herself again as the 5 kicks on. She winds up in just a little bit of an uncomfortable spot there. I think this was a pretty good effort, all things considered, last time out from the 4 Shining Colors.
Yeah, I think that she got a little bit intimidated. That's not a comfortable position to be in, and the 5 was moving a little bit better and had a clearer position to the outside. So maybe being stuck down inside of horses, because she swung 7 wide in her debut, maybe being stuck down inside was not where she found herself comfortable. But seeing Irad Ortiz take the call, I don't think she'll be 10-1 in here on the class drop, but that just might be the right spot for her. I thought the 12 Uncaptured Ruby was a little bit interesting too, who just has the speed more than anything and gets Louis Saez.
She picks up Louis second behind Irad. It is 73-56 with quite a bit of racing left to go. You've got the Safi second-time starter, the 8 Lori Lupis, and a rare ride. Amisael does not ride for Safi all that often. This horse got bet, did not run. She's probably going to take a step forward today. And Eddie Keneally's very good first out. He can get a horse even maiden claiming ranks cranked up and really is sharp walking the razor's edge. And I have a feeling, I don't know anything, of course, as far as whispers, but I'm thinking Ebony Bay, the firster for Tyler and Eddie, could be pretty live.
Yeah, training at Palm Meadows, and Philly by Violence out of an unraced mare who 3 out of her 4 foals already have been winners.
Oh, I like hearing that. And she was bought as a weanling for $50, did not meet her reserve of $37,000 as a yearling a little over a year ago. As we take a little time out, we'll chase that $300,000 guarantee after this.
It's the dawn of a new day in racing, All attention is on the safety of the horses from more professionals than ever before. Our eyes are on the prize to gallop past the old era towards a reinvention of our sport. Take your place with us now. This is it. The future of racing is off and running. It's all happening at each of our world-class venues. Our new vision for racing will drive us past the finishing line, heralding a new era for the sport. When betting, avoid the rush and allow First Bet to give you a leg up. Our app uses real-time data to help you make your bets with confidence. Enjoy a new vision for post-race entertainment. From the oval to the stage, the after party, and beyond. We invite you to the future of racing. A first of its kind.
And if you're just joining us, we are fast and firm on another idyllic condition day for thoroughbred racing here at Gulfstream Park. A 10-race Wednesday coming up, and a race and a card that might have some implications towards the Fountain of Youth, the Fasig-Tipton Fountain of Youth, a bit later this month. In fact, I think the final weekend of February is the Fasig-Tipton Fountain.
Yeah, it's on the leap day,
so it's
February
on 29th. Right, yeah, cool.
So don't forget, it's still February.
It is still February for sure, and we're hoping to see a big race, not only out of Carpe Omnius, but you've got Smash Factor coming up in the 9th as he gets away from Chance It finally. I tell you, the Jorge Navarro horse, it may not be Premier Star, but that horse, Country Day, I think the horse, or Conquest Day.
Yeah, very well first out at Tampa.
Yeah, I like that horse's race at Tampa quite a bit, so that's a race we'll spend some time on a bit later in the show, Acacia. But let's talk about this $300,000 guaranteed jackpot Rainbow Six. 20 cents gets you in the door, and do you have a single here?
I don't have a single. I did not end up singling Carpe Omnius because of the Jorge Navarro horse, and I still think Carpe Omnius wants a little bit more distance than what he's going to get today. So he should win, absolutely, but we started off with the cash out of the early pick 5. I mentioned Machiavelli, rematch with Call Me Norman, as Jason had alluded to earlier. I've got 2 deep in the 6th, which could be a little bit interesting. There could be some first-time starters in there that maybe we're not going to see the best from them today, but maybe down the road for Shug McGahee, Jimmy Jerkins, you've got some good barns in play. I wanted to spread in the 8th race. I like some prices in there for sure. The number 7 Bourbon Currency off big layoff for John Kimmel, but may just sit a nice trip. And then the 9th race using Carpe Omnius and Conquest Day. And then we wrap things up. It's still a very nice cash out in here today. To wrap up the day, I'm 1-6 with a couple class droppers in there.
One for Jane Sabelli and the other towards the outside for trainer Juan Rodriguez. I wish the 12 New Year had a better post. A little tough breaking from out there, but he's a major player running against a couple of Kentucky drop-downs who I think might give good accounts of themselves a bit later on in our 10th race as we wrap up the card at around 5:35, 5:40 with that 1 p.m. start time on this February 5th. They were rolling early in that Machiavelli race. There was a very, very searing pace in that spot. Machiavelli basically followed the 2 Just Call Me Norman, and they wind up in stalls 1 and 2 today.
Yeah, and this was a horse that I think we're going to get a chance to see something better from today, talking about Machiavelli, because I think that he kind of ran his own race before the gates even opened. He was one, he reared up in the tunnel and was acting up a little bit on the horse path in his last race, and I think just off of the layoff, and he ran a solid race. So now second off the bench, I think we're going to get a chance to see a little bit stronger performance. Just Call Me Norman has been very consistent. He's been right there in his last few starts. And Montatham.
Yeah, that sounds
about
right.
That sounds about right. We'll go with that. He's a very interesting horse.
Yeah, very interesting horse as he comes in and tries winners for the first time off a layoff of approximately 3 3/4 months. I like this stat. We pulled this stat on Kieran. This is last out maiden winners returning and claiming races, winning 1 out of every 4. Horses that are clearly not getting bet all that strongly considering it's Kieran, and Kieran almost always uses a top rider. In this case, you've got Luis Saez, who had teamed up aboard this Colt by Candy Ride in that maiden win in the middle of October up at Belmont. To me, this stat shows just good, solid placement from this barn.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And obviously, there's been some questions along the way with this 4-year-old colt. Debuted in May of 2019, didn't come back until September, then won in October, and has been on the bench since then. But I think seems to be placed well. Has been training on the turf at Palmettos for a very, very good barn.
Definitely. Here's race number 6. We hit that half-mile pole with 5 down and 5 to go, and we'll start Wednesday's late pick 5 that sees me. Although I think Conquest Day will run well and Smash Factor might be dangerous too, I liked what I saw with Carpe Omnius, and I'm anxious to see him even stretching out an additional furlong off a multi-gear, multi-move type debut that we're going to look at in depth when we get up to the 9th race. So he is, again, the building block off this $27 late pick 5 that has me using in a very tricky, almost eclectic field of older maiden special weight runners. I'm outside. I'm 6, 7, 8 in this race. Now you're 5, 7, 8, 6. There's not a lot of form, at least as it stands, Acacia, on the dirt recently. I didn't know where to go. I'm thinking perhaps the 5 Ghost on a Mission for Jimmy J. And Shug's Firster top seed might be live. What do you like potentially about the Jerkins Firster?
Well, Jimmy's Firsters have been really good lately. He had a very impressive first-time starter last week.
On Edge,
Life
right?
on Edge, for sure. And this one by Go Sapper, out of a mare who was precocious, and that's kind of what pushed it over the edge for me. She was stakes place. She won it, too. This one's been training solidly in here for sure, and gets Javier Castellano. But Propensity, going to Belmont, he's never been on the dirt before. He's only run on synthetic, but this is an interesting horse. You kind of wonder what we're going to get from his twirling candy gelding, and he does have speed.
And he's been based here at Gulfstream, which I think is interesting. And thanks to having XBTV, and again, all these workouts are free and not behind a paywall, we've got the benefit of going back and at least getting a little bit of a look here. An Easy Breeze and a horse that may have been a little green on that inside lead with Propensity so far in front of workmate Scape going back to the morning of January 5th. I had pulled this workout not only just for my own curiosity. I'm curious, Acacia, what you walked away with just watching this horse get over the dirt.
Well, I thought it was a nice workout. I thought he got over the dirt just fine, and clearly, obviously, much the best of who he was working with. And though it was on synthetic at Turf Paradise last time out, he did finish in what actually proved to be a very productive race. The 2 next out winners got Buyer speed figures of 82 and 86. So it was a good race that he comes out of. He seems to be getting over the track well for his debut in South Florida.
And then the Shug Firster, and it's a very, with Propensity, a very un-Bill Mott type move
It
here.
is,
Just
absolutely.
a weird-looking trader
Absolutely.
change. A horse in from Turfway, long layup preceded that. 2 races on the synthetic at Woodbine. But, you know, and again, Shug obviously not known maybe for his prowess with first-time starters on the dirt, yet it's not, unless somebody really freaks in this race, which might be somewhat unlikely, it looks like a spot where the 8 top seed by Orb out of a Giants Causeway Dam, who was pretty versatile, she won on dirt and turf. This horse could be dangerous.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And now the Dam's only dirt win was on a wet track, and she seemed to be a little bit better on turf. Did produce a couple of horses who have been stakes placed. One was a dirt sprinter and one won on grass. So I'm curious to see where this one kind of belongs, because it seems like Orb's offspring have done well
turf.
on the turf.
Oh, turf. Yeah,
so I'll be curious to see what we get from this one first.
Yeah, real tricky race there in the 6th. Real mishmash of horses. Anyway, the 7th, there's a little more, I guess, continuity in this race because, I mean, first and foremost, as you work your way through and just look at the last out, maybe date and running line and company line, for 2/3 of this field, you've got a 9-horse cast where 6 of these older fillies and mares are coming out of the same race, that Avenida Manana race here back on January 15th. Of that whole sextet, you've got Is Adorable Aida. I hope I used that word right there.
But it's not something you hear often.
No, it's really not. And I think I used it correctly. But anyway, Is Adorable Aida seems to be the measuring stick with that group. My question is she ever going to bust through this condition?
That's what my kind of hang-up with her is, too. And she's 7-5 on the morning line. She's got Irene Ortiz. She's run 2 good races, but she's kind of just been right there without getting the win.
Yep.
And it's a hard ask to take a horse like that who has kind of been knocking on the door. So I went with Jose Ortiz, and Venezuelan Forever certainly has her own fair share of some dirtied up form. But she's a reclaim by Jorge Delgado, and I like that he claimed her, kind of freshened her up a little bit, gave her some time, maybe go back to the drawing board a bit. And this was a reclaim with Drawing Away Stable. We know they like to put horses where they can win.
Definitely. I mean, clearly, outside of Isadora Aida, she's a major player, Venezuelan Forever, and a very logical-looking alternative to the favorite, much like the 9 Retro Street, who has her claiming price essentially cut in half for KO and Tyler. And I've got, although she didn't factor last time at a good price, I have no issues as with that 30K division that she caught as a whole, the likes of Scatnap and Pugilist. Those horses are pretty legit.
Very tough field that she does come out of, and that was shipping down to South Florida, first time with Kathleen off of a bit of a layoff after some very tough New York races that she was running against.
Here's the 8th. We're on the turf in a short game turf race for sure as we go the 5 with this older $30,000 to $25,000 claiming race that sees you and I, basically mid-pack to the outside. The Kimmel layoff horse who clearly has some ability in the 7 Bourbon Currency, the 9 our boy Evans who's got speed and seems to be custom made for these 5 furlong run and gun type turf sprints, and the 10 Wonder Inn who disappointed last time out. I was thinking ultimately maybe a change of scenery from one good barn to another with David Fox off the claim might wake him up in this spot.
It could be, and it certainly was a disappointment. He was such a short price last time, switching back to the turf, and I did not trust him that day.
Yeah.
And
he didn't run all that well.
He didn't. He really didn't. And it's tough because it looks like he should get the right kind of trip in this spot. And if so, maybe top to bottom, maybe he's going to face a little softer field in here than last time. But I did think there's plenty of speed signed on, certainly Louis Kingdom. Our boy Evans is very fast early. And I'm hoping, and it's been a long time since he's run, but I'm hoping that Bourbon Currency just has a touch of a class edge in here for John Kimmel, who's off the layoff. But again, hoping that he's going to get a good trip, and maybe just given the fact of who he was running against before the layoff.
Definitely, as he gets a rod off the bench for Mr. John Kimmel. 9th race, here's the spotlight race on the card, and we do cap the main track action and style today. Going 7 furlongs in the dirt finale, a 3-year-old high-priced allowance optional claimer, led, of course, by the 3 Carpe Omnius. And let's backtrack to his first start 4 days before Christmas Day, where I pulled the replay, Acacia, basically as they hit the bank of the far turn, because I wanted to show not only was this horse hustled and hard-ridden to keep his position inside from that tough inside post, he started to drop back a bit, and I remember at this point thinking, does Javier have any horse? He, in the end, though, will show that he had plenty of horse beneath him, and I think this goes a long way in probably giving some concrete evidence that this horse going 6 was short, but he still was able to get the win, and he got it making a couple of different moves.
And clearly now where he gets lucky, he has a big hole open up for him along the rail where he's able to come through. And as it seems like he's really kind of spinning his wheels at this point, and then all of a sudden has a really strong acceleration. But as they come down to the wire, All Eyes West, who looked like a sharp sprinter type, you can see just how much bigger Carpe Omnius is than him. And so that's why I do wonder, yes, 7 furlongs, he gets an extra furlong, but seems like he's kind of the run-all-day type. He's an absolutely beautiful horse. He was the priciest of 73 of the first crop of yearlings by Carpe Diem, sold in 2018.
Wow.
So he's really, they have high hopes for him, and rightfully so.
Now, horses out of that race immediately have gone 0 for 4. It hasn't been this monstrous super live race, but clearly that was a horse just better than the competition, and he'll get that additional furlong today. And it's the same kind of move. A JBM first-time out winner for the 4 Conquest Day in off a sloppy track race at Tampa. Coincidentally, the same January 4th card we checked out earlier with that Radal Brisset horse in the 5th race this afternoon. And we'll backtrack basically to the mid-portion of the far turn. So I just wanted to show how Conquest Day was hooked and really was in kind of no man's land down inside where the favorite, the big even money favorite, Ike is Great, had him pinned to the rail. And I gave this horse some credit maybe more so than just looking at the running line on paper, how he looked that horse in the eye, broke his heart, and then kicked away for a pretty impressive score.
I agree. I think visually the race even looks so much better than it does on paper. And yes, it was a sloppy track debut race, but the way that he pulled away after never having a breather, he sent right to the front, and there were actually two on the outside of him early on in the race. He never had a breather, had pressure the whole time. So he's very interesting, stepping up to face winners for the first time as well. But Todd Pletcher's got two in here, and he's got one that's faced great at Stakes Company a couple times in Mystic Lancelot, but that's always been on the turf. So he's a bit of a wild card, as is Smash Factor, who's kept some good company, too.
I mean, that is amazing to me when you just take apart in 4 races, because he's been the local boy down here. He's run against Chance It 3 times, and the one time he doesn't have to face Chance It.
He's got as seen on TV.
Yeah, he hooks as seen on TV over at GPW for that Millions Prep Day. And I mean, outside of the Mucho Macho Man, he's run fine in all of his races to date. And I think ultimately he may have just tipped his hand at this stage of the game, and maybe even further than here and now. He's probably a horse at his best. I'm thinking maybe 6 to 7.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. Physically, that's what he looks like, too. And I know he ran a distant second, but he ran a good second, going a mile and a 16th in the Florida Sire Stakes behind Chance It. But I think now he's facing a stronger caliber of horses, and maybe 6 to 7 furlongs is where he's more comfortable.
All right, good little field there in the 9th race as we cap things on the turf. Our last call Wednesday nightcap is a $25,000 to $20,000 older maiden claimer that I'm basically Kentucky drop downs in this race. I've got the McPeak horse, the 2 Embellisher, behind the 6 Right On Kid, who's got Eddie Keneally and Tyler. Both those horses just taking that ultimately pretty powerful special weight to maiden 25 move.
Not to mention, Right On Kid's been running some distance races, mile and 3/16, mile and an eighth in his 2 races in Kentucky, and good races at that. So drop-in class should be key, and I thought Cool Hand Coupe off the layoff could be interesting for Gene Sibeli.
All right, little Paco action from that inside post as we take a timeout. 1 p.m. our start time today, and that means it's time to bring on the one and only Pete Aiello with those scratches and changes.